For more insight on China's impact at COP15, let's bring in Einar Tangen. He's a senior fellow at the Taihe Institute. Thank you so much for joining us from Beijing, Einar.
My pleasure.
Well, day 10 just ended in Montreal. How is China leading and working with everyone to reach consensus on issues like funding, as we heard, where the parties remain very far apart?
Well, Elaine, I mean, it's a two-track process. One, you heard there was the speeches by Xi Jinping where he was trying to encourage people to cross this divide. Second, China is showcasing what it has actually done. So it's not just a bunch of words. They're talking about for instance, the 10 million hectare Shanshui a reclamation project, the Green Belt and Road Initiative, how they're setting up investment guidelines to help people in terms of evaluating projects. But this is going to take a consensus. This is not something where everyone votes and, 50%, if you have more than 50%, you win. This is a situation where the world has to come together, and it's really a divide between the global north, the advanced countries, the wealthiest ones, and the global south and Central Asia. And it's about money, as I said. The offer right now is 10 billion a year, and the promise that were made previously were 100 billion a year. So obviously, big gap, but it can only be closed through consensus.
We always see, these struggles as we get toward the very end, deadline fast approaching. Do you think they can get it together before Monday?
Well, one hopes, and they're going to be looking for any kind of a victory, small, that they can. I mean, this is a pressing issue. This is part of three meetings out there that have to do with wildlife, land reclamation, and obviously, the climate change. So it's not. We keep saying they have to do something, and it's true, but the question is there a political will to do it at a time when things are very, very difficult economically, especially in nations around Europe and in the North Americas? They are distracted by their own issues, and they're not seeing the larger picture that this is, in fact, an extinction-level event.
Einar, you mentioned some of the things that China has been doing in country with its own efforts, several projects, even new laws. They've created more national parks, protected lands and species. Can other countries, smaller countries with not as many resources or government help or funding, look to China as an example and perhaps model or do something similar in their country?
Yes, they can. I mean, a lot of the things that China is doing are transferable, especially when it comes to wildlife protection and things like that. When you combine it with business ideas, ecotourism, etc., when you start planting trees, I mean, China is going to plant trees in an area the size of Belgium. And that's just, on a yearly basis. So there is that ability, but you have to mobilize people. But, in the end, there still has to be some money there. You can't just pretend that the wealthy nations can pollute all the way as much as they have and then not take responsibility for it. So, as I said, it's a very difficult situation. It has to be by consensus, though, and that takes some give on both sides. My guess is that there'll be an in-between number between 10 and 100 billion, but the question is, will it be followed through? There are a lot of times when their commitments have been made in the past, and they have not been followed through. I mean, there was 100 billion that was supposed to be put in by 2020 by the developed nations. It has never materialized, and this is creating a real trust deficit. So at some point, many of these nations, especially Global South, they're going to have to say, okay, we're going to have to make do with what we can if, in fact, the Global North, the developed North, the wealthy North isn't going to participate.
Einar, about 30 seconds left. You talk about following up. China has the presidency of COP15. Could China enact any sort of enforcement measures? Will it be looking at other members to ensure that they do follow through on its commitments? Is that something that China is considering moving forward?
Well, they can propose them, but in these kind of environments, it has to be by consensus, and this is a stronger point for China than perhaps the U.S. The U.S. is used to saying, "Look, this is the way it's going to be, and let's take a vote on it." But you can't do that with sovereign nations. So right now, China it has a strong suit. It's you see that with RCEP, the Belt and Road Initiatives, all the BRICS, etc. So I think, as I said before, it's going to be an issue of going to other entities, especially BRICS, um, outside the global north, trying to make headway if, in fact, they can't get over this trust deficit and things can't be moved forward.